and check out Luis Scott-Vargas drafting on behalf of Team ChannelFIreball against them boys. Hello there, welcome back to coverage here at the Team Draft Super League with Marshall Sutcliffe in the virtual booth with Dave Williams, and we're watching Luis Scott-Vargas draft. Now remember, this is team draft. You're drafting against the other team. Dave, what are you seeing out of this pack here?
I'm seeing an Ominous Sphinx. That's the first thing that I mean, I look at the rare. Rare is not something I'm really interested in this draft, and then I just go down the line. Both uncommons are solid. You know, you got a desert, a very good zombie, but Ominous Sphinx, I think, is a class. It's basically Air Elemental, which was always just one of the best cards in Limited, with an upside. You cycle and you can blank their guy, make combat incredibly difficult. I just think it's by far the best card in the pack.
Yeah, it looks like Luis has it highlighted here. And if we look over on the left, you can see the table graphic. We've got Luis passing to Alexander Haines, who is then passing to Eric. He's passing to Mike Sigrist, to Stark, and then to Steve Rubin, and that brings us back to Luis here. So what are the cards that Luis might be kind of earmarking, like, hey, I'm passing a good card in these colors out of this particular pack?
So I think the next best cards are probably like Aerial Guide, which is also blue, which is good if he wants to kind of put Haines in blue. A lot of players like Riddle Form. It's kind of a draft around. I don't know if in a 3-on-3 you really want to try to do something like that. I think you want to be more flexible in 3-on-3s. The Accursed Horde is solid in the Frontline Devastator, but we've got Xion on a horse.
Oh, Luis. He just can't help himself. You know, he busts that thing out every chance he gets. He'll do it. He'll wear that T-shirt he's got. Anyway, what are you seeing out of this pack here, Dave? I see there's an Aerial Guide that we talked about before, but there's some other good stuff. A Manticore Eternal. I see an Archer over there. Lethal Sting. What do you like?
You know, I like to stick to blue here, I think, and take Aerial Guide because nothing else really jumps out to me here. I mean, there could be an argument for Lethal Sting if you like blue-black, or even a Firebrand Archer if you want to do blue-red spells. But I just think it's nice early to just kind of stay flexible, stay committed to your first color. I think Aerial Guide's a solid card. I mean, nothing really. I think for me to veer off to another color, it has to be something really solid. Mm-hmm. Or I have to really be able to manipulate the guy after me. But I think this pack is so wide open. It's not like if you leave the Aerial Guide, you can guarantee Haines going to take it anyway. So it's like you can't really control his draft with this pick. So I think I'm most likely just going to stay on target here.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, I mean, a couple of the good cards that Luis passed out of the first pick were blue anyway. You know, he better pick something here, though. He's going to take the If Near Deadlands. Cool. Yeah, I was looking at that card as a possibility, and he did take it here.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to get to that next. I think Deadlands is great also, and he took it also.
But ooh, look at this pack.
Really, another Aerial Guide, Unsummon, I love.
Puncturing Blow, Sunscourge Champion.
Yeah, it's tough. See, this is where stuff. I mean, I personally think I want to take Puncturing Blow here at this point. I like blue-red spells, but
yeah, I mean, to me, like the cards that stand out are Puncturing Blow and Sunscourge Champion is the kind of 1 and 2 there. You know, Sunscourge Champion's been pretty impressive just as a solid uncommon with a very cheap Eternalized cost, even if it does require you to discard a card. It's still only 4 mana to get it back. But the Puncturing Blow seems to be, you know, kind of the most outright powerful card here.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much really in black, and there's like Cycling Desert here to, you know, pick up on. Aerial Guide's best blue card, but Puncturing Blow is just such solid, good removal, and I think in these things you really want to be in removal. He takes the
Spellweaver Eternal. Oh boy.
Which is strange because Spellweaver Eternal is best in blue-red. So like if you're going to do that, you might want the Puncturing Blow.
I agree. Yeah, that's an interesting pick. Now he sees another Firebrand Archer here, but there's also 2 deserts, a Desert of the Fervent, a Desert of the Mindful. And on top of that, there's a Resolute Survivors. It looks like he wants the other desert, though. And those are going to be hard to find here, I think.
I really like Desert of the Mindful there. I mean, I think just having on-color deserts is huge.
Wow, here's another one. Also a Fervent Paincaster still in the pack. It looks like red. It does seem to be the most open color here. I mean, we saw a couple of Firebrand Archers plus the Puncturing Blow and the Fervent Paincaster. There was even a Manticore.
I think you got it. Paincaster's just too good, and I think it does too much. I think at this stage, he's passed so much red. If I'm him, I'm going to try to cut some of that red. I think he's just giving Haines too much red at this point.
Yeah, he's letting it go by. He took Aerial Guide and then immediately snapped off another one. So Luis is he is committing to blue here. He's got a little bit of a touch into black with the If Near Deadlands, but he's not interested.
Yeah, no, here's a spot where he can take the Accursed Horde.
Yeah, this is the card, of course, that wheeled for him here. That was the pack that he opened.
I'm not a huge fan of it in blue-black. I mean, it's okay, but yeah. I usually like my blue-black decks to be kind of spell and cycling based, and I think Accursed Horde's better and more of a creature combat-based deck.
For sure. Yeah, you want that in your zombies deck, your black-white deck, not necessarily here. It's okay.
He can attack and have it fly. Although I guess, it is Ominous Sphinx is better in blue-black because you do get more black cyclers, than any other color you're going to pair with blue. So that could be one of the reasons why he's prioritizing the black, or just because he wants to get max value out of his Deadlands.
There's that Firebrand Archer coming back. That's going to have to stand out to him, though. He could just take like a Marauding Bone Slasher and stay in his colors. Yeah, that's what he's done.
It looks like he's staying in his colors, but I really would have loved to see him in blue-red here. I think not only would his deck be phenomenal, but I think there's a good chance Haines would end up blue-red right behind him based on just what the second best cards were, and he could really be kind of riding Haines in this draft. Whereas now I think he's passed him a fairly good red deck. Yeah,
he's passed him some pretty good stuff. I mean, the Firebrand Archers are really only great in this blue-red deck, so, he doesn't have to worry about those. But, the Puncturing Blow went by. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good chance. There were 3 other aerial guides he passed on that Alex could have in his deck.
Mm-hmm. This is getting interesting, though. He actually has what looks to be a very aggressive blue-black deck. Take a look at his cards here.
This isn't something you see quite often when you see blue-black. Usually you see more of the cycling-based control decks, but this is shaping up to look pretty dang cool. I mean, attacking with aerial guys, giving your 2 drops flying. I mean, he's got a nice curve. He's got the solid creatures, something blue-black doesn't have. He has 7 creatures and no spells. Usually blue-black is, mostly spells. So
yeah. This, of course, lets him play the If Near Deadlands. All right, well, not a lot for Luis out of this pack. There is a Traveler's Amulet if he wants to just pick up kind of random card, that can trigger the Spellweaver Eternal or something. He also could just take a Firebrand Archer or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he might go with the Amulet because it allows him to... No, he's going to cut the Archer. See, I like cutting the Archer, but the Amulet does allow you to splash something incredible. Like, say you were to open a Locust God next pack, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. And he can pick up a Frontline Devastator here if he'd like. He may look at Gideon's Defeat as it is a particularly good sideboard card, and if he figures that he doesn't want his teammates or his opponents to have it, he could take it.
I think he's moving it on the red just to prevent giving Haines just insane, every card he wants, just in case he is on the red.
Yeah, and I mean, frankly, Luis could keep his options open and still be in red somehow. I mean, he would have a Firebrand Archer and a Frontline Devastator rather than those 3 black cards in the Deadlands. It's not quite there yet, but it's not impossible. Though it does feel unlikely for him to get great red out of this second pack, as he did pass a decent amount of it already.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see really any red except for unless it's like a secondary card out of the pack or he opens one.
Oh, there's a Sand Strangler Lego, Dave. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, he could try and splash it. He does have 2 deserts already, and if he can pick up another desert or the Survivor's Encampment there, it does give him a chance. He didn't take the Traveler's Amulet. If he doesn't do that, he does have Unquenchable Thirst, which is really solid removal, and, he does have 2 deserts. I could see him just staying on target with a Thirst, but... Because there's not much risk in passing the Sand Straggler, because you can be almost certain Steve Rubin's not going to be not playing red based on what he's passed.
Very good point. Yeah, so he may be able to sneak that Sand Strangler by.
Which is why,
get it over to Ben.
Here's the thing. Thirst goes in your deck 100%. Sand Strangler almost certainly does not go in Steve's deck unless he splashes. For you to take it, you'd have to jank your deck up to splash it, and there's a good chance, not that much, but there's a chance you can get it through to Ben. Like, let's say Steve's Black-White Zombies. He's probably just going to take a Rattling Mummy instead of trying to splash the Sand Strangler. So there's a chance, I would say, that I think you just take the Thirst here and try to sneak that through to your teammate.
Yeah, and even if Steve were to hate draft the Sand Strangler, well, that's fine with you. He's just throwing away a pick anyway. So interesting stuff. It's just risky, right? Like if Steve does find a way to get that into his deck, or if somehow he is red, again, I agree with you, by the way, it seems quite unlikely. Yeah, he took the Unquenchable Thirst.
Yeah, Unquenchable Thirst is a very solid card, and here it is.
We got another one.
Runamap Ruins, the card of the Pro Tour, but no, another Unquenchable Thirst goes right in his deck.
There's also a Torment of Venom and an Open Fire in this pack. This is a very good pack.
Yeah, I mean, for Luis, I think he's just got to stick with the Thirst, but that pack is solid.
Sure. Yeah, it's just he has to look at that and go, boy, I'm passing some really good removal. Even though, he took some good removal too. So pair of Unquenchable Thirst with 2 deserts. Where do you want to be on deserts to make your Unquenchable Thirst like, yeah, I'm happy with these?
I mean, 4 or 5. There's no number. I don't stop really, but I mean, I think if you have at least 3, you feel good. But I like to have 4 or 5. I mean, it's great to have cycling lands in your deck.
Sinuous Striker was the pick there for Luis. Passing an Ambuscade. Luis is sticking pretty close to his guns here. He's not really aggressively going after the off-color good cards, the removal spells that he's been passing. He just passed an Open Fire and then an Ambuscade. He's just taking good cards for his deck.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this in the matches I've watched Luis play. I rewatched the one against us, and it seems like that's his strategy in this. He doesn't get too cute, too fancy, and try to cut and hook people and splash them. He just drafts a good solid deck and just picks up the wins. But there's a lot to say about that in Team Draft Now, because Team Draft Now is nothing like it was 10 years ago when there were 8 playables in a pack and you had to kind of piece together a deck. It's really hard to train wreck someone because there's just so many playables that you do too much of that, you train wreck yourself, and the guy behind you just still has a deck. I mean, almost every card is playable, not like it used to be. Even the bad cards, you can still, like every card in this pack right here we're looking at could be in a deck, and there's nothing wrong with it other than Forest. Whereas back in the day, there'd be 5 cards that just aren't playable.
That's right. Yeah. It is really very different. Is Luis going to take the 2-drop Spellweaver Eternal or a second Sinuous Striker or maybe even a 3rd Aerial Guide? He's got decent options out of this pack. I think it's kind of a curve consideration thing for Luis here.
I think if it's me here, I'm taking the Spellweaver Eternal. Your curve is just so huge right now. He doesn't have a lot of 2-drops, and the style of deck he's drafting really wants to come out of the gates 2-3-4 or 2-3-3. So he agrees and he takes the Spellweaver Eternal. And so that's a lot about drafting. It's not always about what the best card is. It's always about what the best card for your deck is and what makes a deck. I remember Huey said this to me years ago. Not to me, he would just say it. I don't draft cards, I draft decks. And people would like, oh, what about this card? I draft decks.
That's awesome. I love that. Wow, this pack's really bad for Luis here. Imaginary Threat's really the only on-color card outside of a Ruin Rat. And, ugh, it looks terrible. I think he's actually just going to hate draft the Desert of the Indomitable here.
Yeah, he saw 0 green last pack, so he's almost certain Steve is probably green.
All right, well, he can take a Desert of the Glide here to get his Desert count up to 3. If he doesn't want to, he could take either of the 2, Lethal Sting or another Marauding Bone Slasher. But yeah, he takes that Desert. That did seem to be the right pick there, didn't it?
Yeah, with 2 Thirst and a Deadlands, that Desert is paramount. He needs that, and it also works well with his Ominous Sphinx. I think he's just got to take it. I mean, here, he gets a pack where there's not really anything for his deck. I mean, he could take a Moaning Wall, another 3-drop, but his deck, you don't really need a wall. I mean, it's just a cycler, in my opinion, that could shore up a weakness if you find yourself buried behind something. But
he did wheel the Unraveling Mummy, and there's another one in the next pack, too. But, the fact that it came back probably signals that nobody is in that color pair anyway. So he probably doesn't need to prioritize it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's looking at D'ing it up. It's not something that looks, I mean, anybody playing Black-White's probably taking an Haven of Enduring Hope next pack anyways. I mean, I think it's an overall more solid card. I guess not always if you're a dedicated zombie deck, but
no, he took it.
That dedicated, they probably would have taken it already.
That's what I was thinking too, but he did end up taking it. He took the
There's just no reason. I think there's nothing in the pack you really want except maybe a Traveler's Amulet. And if someone happens to be just playing Black-White Zombies, you don't want it to just fall into their lap where they're just like, oh, look at this. Last pick Unraveling Mummy. My deck is absurd. Yeah. So, yeah, I can see going ahead and taking it there.
Well, if he took that first one, he'll probably just take this one too.
Yeah.
And he did. So what are we at here? 3, 6, 7, 9 creatures, 2 not creatures. So he's at 11 playables coming into sort of the last part of this pack. It's a little light.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him, based on what we saw, I don't see him getting, well, he gets another 3-drop there if he needs a playable. So he's at 12, but it's not a card I'm excited to play.
No, but I think he's pretty much like, okay, yeah, well,
he's going to really, Carrion's creatures playable, 4-drop, flies, 3 power. I'm happy there. But especially in the spot he's in needing playables, but I think he's going to need a really big last pack. I mean, he is in dire need of some playables. Vile Manifestation is usually a fantastic card. If you're
he could take that or the Bone Slasher, depending. on his cycle situation.
Yeah, it's different. Vomit Manifestation is usually better for different types of blue-black decks. Not this one, but he could still take it. It cycles on its own, so at worst, it's always going to replace itself. And no, he went with another Ruin Rat. Yeah, as I say, but at the same time, it just doesn't do much in his deck.
All right. Well, he's on 15 playables coming in here with 2 removal spells. So this has not gone perfectly here for Luis. And, he maybe has gotten a few reasonable cards out of his opponent's deck potentially. But, it's not like he was a wrecking ball just, taking everything in sight like we've seen Ben Stark do previously. Though it does look like he's going to go ahead and hate draft this Prepare to Fight. He knows how powerful that card can be.
Yeah, there's nothing really super exciting for him. I mean, Essence Scatter is solid. I like Supernatural Staminas, especially with 2 of the Death Touch rats. But in general, there's nothing. I think if you can get those cards, he's going to get something on the wheel because those cards are a high priority of his pack. Taking the Prepare to Fight is just the smarter play here in the team draft.
Yeah, card's just too good to let go by. Also, by the way, Dave, you see him start to inching, well, let's put this without weakness back in the main. That might make the cut. And, that works pretty well with Ruin Rat, and he has 2 of those. So maybe those will end up creeping back into the main deck, though. He does have them in the board currently. Yeah,
it's ambitious to go ahead and put those in the board. I mean, he's just counting on getting 10 playables out of this pack. And it's a Prepare to Fight. I'm going to wager that 1 or 2 of those rats ends up back in his deck.
I'm with you.
That's quite ambitious.
Yeah.
Here it's tough. I mean, for 2-drop concerns, there's Miasmic Mummy and Doom Dissenter, both solid. I mean, I think the Mummy being a zombie plays with the Accursed Horde a little better. But Essence Scatter is also, you do need some spells for your Spellweaver Eternal, which has prowess. So I would not surprised to see Essence Scatter here.
Yeah, Luis is an Essence Scatter fan in general as well. He went ahead and took it. Also, again, being super light on removal, even though Essence Scatter doesn't count as removal, you do need some way to interact or deal with with opposing threats. Ooh, Bone Picker.
Bone Picker and Splendid Agony.
Oh, Splendid Agony too.
There's a lot more 1 toughness creatures in Hour of Devastation.
Oh yeah, tons of them. And there's a lot of them going around the table. Remember when Luis was passing those Firebrand Archers?
Right, we've seen quite a few. So Splendid Agony has a lot of value. And I like Bone Picker, don't get me wrong, but I like it more in decks with a lot of removal, so you can kind of play it in the same turn and get that tempo. So, and the fact that he needs spells, I'm going to actually think I personally might have taken Splendid Agony just to go with my prowess creatures, and because he's really light on removal other than 2 Unquenchable Thirst. And you don't really
those don't work with Bone Picker, do they?
Right, and you don't want to use that on like a Firebrand Archer. That's not going to save you, or the Fervent Paincaster, right? What's he going to do about a Fervent Paincaster here? Totally. And I guess tapping it with Unquenchable Thirst works, but I'm saying you still need to be able to remove creatures like that and save your thirst for something like a 5/5, because he doesn't have a way to really deal with a 5/5.
Ooh, there's Gideon still in the pack. There's also an Electrify, perhaps a Grimstrider for Luis. He is kind of looking to empty his hand. A lot of times when we're thinking about blue-black, we think of the deck you described earlier, Dave, kind of the cycling deck that, often has some card draw in it and can keep cards in hand. But this deck does look a little bit more like, here's what I got, empty out my hand style aggro, in which case Grimstrider might be playable. Would you consider cutting Gideon? How good do you think Gideon is in the limit?
I don't think that Gideon's very good. I mean, obviously it's like a small sample size, but I haven't really lost to it, and I haven't found any struggles with it, and I've had it a few times, and it hasn't been that great. I also don't think he's really. I don't think it's worth cutting right now. I don't think it's worth cutting right now, especially that he needs cards. I think personally I'm going to go with Grimstrider because it flies with Aerial Guide, which is a beating, being able to hit somebody for 5 or 6. But
he cut the Electrify. So, yeah, Luis really didn't want to pass that red removal spell, and he just shipped it away, though he did get a good pack here with Cursed Minotaur probably being the pick, though there is a Trial of Ambition. Unfortunately, you really want to have a cartouche in your deck to make Trial of Ambition a lot better. A 2-mana Edict effect, not so great on its own. It's okay, but, you really want that random upside of being able to get it back. So, yeah, he went with the Minotaur here.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Trial without a way to recurse it, just because there's so many incidental creatures that can get thrown away to it. I think for me, the choice is out of Cursed Minotaur and Wandering Death. I like Wandering Death a lot. Cycling plus the ability to regrow back your Ominous Threat plus, your Ominous Sphinx or anything else is huge to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, he's got a couple of Spellweaver Eternals, and those are the type of cards that you can just jam in there. Ooh, there's a Splendid Agony. Get some value, by getting maybe a trade and then an afflict trigger or whatever, and then just buy them back and do it again. It's a lot of damage. It adds up.
Yeah, no, I'm really big on Wandering Death. I mean, I already was, but with the addition of Hour of Devastation, I'm really happy with it.
Splendid Agony is in the pile now for Luis, so he's going to be happy to see that one. So he really did need something to interact like that. So where is he at now? He's at 20 playables right now.
He's at 20.
Yeah. We got there. He did wheel a Heckma Sentinels here out of the pack, which I think was kind of his best case scenario realistically. And yeah, he may not take it. Yeah, looks like he's going to go for the Kenra Charioteer here.
Two other black cards in this pack. This was his opening pack. I can't remember what they were, but there were two other black cards that I think I would have wanted over the Hemka Sentinels, and it looks like neither of them wheeled. So that's kind
of this was the pack with the which one was this? I remember what you're talking about though. Yeah, but they didn't come back. So it looks like he's just going to cut a Kenra Charioteer here. He must be convinced that Alex would be playing it potentially and doesn't want to give it to his opponent.
Yeah, here's where I might go with Miasmic Mummy, but I don't find a problem with Doom Dissenter. I mean, I like Doom Dissenter better when you have something to do with that body, when you can sacrifice it or put some counters on it. I'm a fan of Mummy.
Yeah, and you mentioned it a minute ago, but it was kind of tough just because the two Ruin Rats really weren't where Luis wanted to be, yet here they are. He's got a, as he would say, horned Kopesh. Wow, Grimstrider came back.
Yeah, so it turns out it worked out where he made the cut, the Grimstrider pack, and got it back.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Like you said, I love that combo with, he's got 2 copies of Aerial Guide in this deck. Like,
yeah, and his deck is very low cost. I could see him easily emptying his hand and having the Strider be an easy 4/4, and then late game, just no problem having a 6 or a 5. The only card he really wants to hold in his hand is Essence Scatter.
Yeah, that's the only one. Everything else, he's just like, trying to fill up the board and get aggressive. And yeah, those Ruin Rats look pretty bad here, right? The Ruin Rat Aerial Guide combo is not really what anybody hopes for, but we often see with these decks that have a good amount of evasion, like 2 Aerial Guides. He's also got the Carrion Screecher, the Bone Picker, and the Ominous Sphinx. A Ruin Rat can do a pretty good job against like a green deck or whatever of just holding off some bigger creatures. So probably be all right.
No, I think it's fine in this deck. I'm not excited about this deck. It needs some oomph, some power. It doesn't have anything that really just gets me happy to have it. But it's not a bad deck. I mean, I think his likely record, he's probably like an average 1.5 wins. 1, 2,
okay.
1. But, this is Magic. There's variance, and he could easily just 3-0. He is Luis. He's a great player, and things seem to go his way. Or things could go bad, and he could go 0-3. But I would say I would probably put this deck on about 1.5 wins. It's not great. He did okay for a seat. I think I would have liked to see some red drafted in the beginning, and I probably would have ended up with a different deck. But again, who knows what happens once you start switching one variable in the beginning, everything in the other packs changes. So we don't know how that would have played out.
Sure. Yeah, funny. He hit exactly 23 playables here, Dave. Just like right on the nose.
Well, a lot that happens a lot though with good players, like because you're kind of gauging what's going to wheel, and once you have, where you can let something go. So it's not that coincidental that he did, but yeah, he doesn't have like an extra just bunch of playables in his sideboard.
In fact, I don't think he has much of a sideboard at all, to be honest. I think this is going to be pretty easy for Luis. He's got a Trespasser's Curse if he sees a deck that's probably not realistic for a team draft, to be honest. Some like heavy token themed deck.
Trespasser's Curse. I mean, I think we saw someone use that to amazing ability on 1 week.
we did see it do well and poorly. We've kind of experienced the gamut from Trespasser's Curse.
Who had it go poorly for them? Did I miss a week or?
What's that?
Who had it go poorly for them?
No comment.
Did you try it?
I've seen it be bad, yes.
No, I've seen it be bad. I mean, on our weeks on teams, I was the only one I've seen ever play it.
And it was good phenomenal. For you.
That was a fine hacker suggestion, though. He was next to me, and he's like, let's try it out.
I remember. Yeah, by the way, I have to say, that was just insane that Hacker was just sitting there. Because, for limited players like me that came to the game later, he's kind of like this legend, right? Like, people talk about him, but, like, I've met him once, actually, through you. But, like, most people haven't, and I still just hear stories about him. And then I hear he's just sitting right next to you. I'm like, what the heck? Remember when you guys were doing commentary? It was pretty cool.
The good news about that is Brian Hacker now plays Magic again.
What? Does he really?
He called me like a few days later. Was like, I hate you. I go, why? He's like, freaking drafting right now. He was playing
Yes.
Cube, which he'd never done before. He was like, this Cube draft is kind of wild. He was sending me, he 3-0'd like his first 3 drafts, just sent me 9-0 of wins. Then when Hour of Devastation came out, he was just sending me draft decks, 3-0'd a few of those. I mean, he won, I would say, like 16 out of his first 18 matches. And I was like, "Are you doing Switched or intermediate?" He's like, "No, just competitive." It's like, why would I do any of those? So he plays now.
What a beating. That's awesome. Am I going to see him at a GP sometime?
I don't know about that. I'm working on it. I got him playing MTGO again, which is good, and I'm going to see where I can take it.
All right. I'll take a good first step. No pressure, but yeah, get him out to a GP. Well, I'll put him in the feature for sure. I want to see him battle. Let's take a look at what Alexander Haines found here in the draft. He was sitting right next to Luis.
Hey,
and his deck.
There he is.
Look at that. He's in red.
And he's got a Locust God.
Oh, baby. Not bad.
Got that Sand Strangler, right? No, he didn't get it. You don't see it. Oh, that was the other way, right?
That's correct. It would have been Steve Rubin who had the option for the Sand Strangler. That's right.
But I think I did say, I believe if he jumped on the red, he would have been able to ride him, which is when you're playing the exact same 2 colors as the person passing to you. He would have been riding Alex Haines, and Alex Haines probably would have wanted to let go of that Locust God, so he would have had kind of a Locust God and a bunch of secondary picks in blue-red.
He took the Riddle form. My God, his deck is absurd. The crazy part is this is the same deck that he drafted against us. He went blue-red against us and just crushed us. Look at his deck, though. 2
Puncturing Blows, Champion of Wits, Unquenchable Thirst.
Yeah. He's got the Fervent Paincaster that we saw as well, and he has 2 aerial guides himself. He also took that Riddle form, and like you said, the Locust God, by the way.
Yeah, just an incredible to open the Locust God and then have the blue-red cards come your way. I mean, a lot of the times, and he's experienced enough to get off of a rare. You know, if blue-red just wasn't coming, there's a chance he has to put it in the sideboard and draft green or maybe try to splash it. But no, he got the cards. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of blue, but his blue cards are good. 2 aerial guides, Champion of the Wits, Riddle form, Unquenchable Thirst, Spellweaver Eternal, Cunning Survivors, which are not that great, but they're solid. They're 2-drops. His blue cards are all good, and his red cards are great.
Man, I'm impressed. He really has put together another nice one. You know, he only got 1 desert. Like, you can get nitpicky on a few things, but whatever. If I'm in Luis's seat, I would trade, Alex decks in a heartbeat. I mean, the Locust God itself just, such a huge card in this type of format. Well, in any type of format, I should say.
Yeah, no, this deck is fantastic, and I mean, 2 Emberhorn Minotaurs, which with aerial guide is just disgusting.
Yes, that is completely brutal.
True Heart Twins are the aerial guide. I mean, all his creatures, Desert Ceradon, his monsters you can send to the air. Yeah, this deck is phenomenal. I'm excited to see. This is what I said though. This is the kind of deck you look at and you get excited. You're like, okay, this deck has good cards, solid, nothing really bad in it. Not to say there's anything wrong with Luis's deck, but it just doesn't excite me. This deck excites me.
Would this type of deck been possible before? You were mentioning earlier that limited has changed and there's so many more playables. Would you ever see a deck like this?
It was rare back in the day of team draft. It was just no one allowed you to get these cards. I mean, I feel like every team draft, at most, you would ever have is 20 playables. That's just all you would have. And even those 20 playables, I mean, you're counting a few kind of mediocre cards. You really only have like 16 good cards. You've got about 4 mediocre cards. And then you got to play 3 just junky cards, 3 cards that no one really ever plays. You got a Blazing Volley in there. You're just trying to do some things, some situational cards. So, no, it's really changed a lot.
Yeah, crazy, too, that, like, not only that, but, this is just a straight-up 2-color deck here from Alex as well. Like, he has not had to dip over into a 3rd color, because I know I was talking to a lot of people about team drafting when I was signed up for this, because I had only done a couple of them before and I had never really applied myself to it because I knew I'll just do one because somebody wanted to, but it wasn't like a thing I was going to be doing repeatedly. And here I thought, okay, let's get into this, right? Like, we did an episode of the podcast about it, and I talked to Luis, I talked to Ben, I talked to Eric. I really tried to figure out exactly what was going on with it. And, they said a lot of time you end up kind of with a bad mana base, right? Where you're stretching out into another color. You're doing kind of the terrible, 6/6/7 or whatever, 5/5/6 mana bases or whatever to try to make it work. And you just don't see that. I mean, this deck just looks straight. Like, if you sent me this screenshot, Dave, and said, what do you think of my my draft deck that I drafted, I'd be like, nice work. Looks good.
Yeah, I don't know about that Traveler's Amulet. It looks like he moved it out. I mean, it does trigger Riddle Form, so I guess it ends Spellweaver Eternal. But I think you just want lands, because I don't think he wants to have a turn taking off a land. I think he wants his first 4 lands to come and play untapped. And I'm not sure if it's worth that trade-off, and I don't think you want to play 16 plus a Traveler's Amulet, so I don't know if you really want to go down to 15 land or not. I don't think I would.
Yeah, that's tough. The Amulet triggers his Spellweaver Eternal and his Thorned Moloch.
And Riddle Form.
And Riddle Form. Is that enough?
I just don't know if it's worth that to have your land come to play tapped potentially in the first 3 turns.
God, it might not be. The Riddle Form is the big one, right? Like 1 activation extra on a Riddle Form can be a big game. He is already running a Crash Through, which isn't going to be like a big impact card as far as what it actually does, but just the fact that it triggers a Riddle Form and, can help get some of his Thorn Moloch and Spellweaver Eternal going could be a thing. He's got Kindled Fury, Unquenchable Thirst. That's interesting. What was that? We've got Ben's draft? Okay, I want to watch Ben's draft. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so here's Ben Stark's draft now.
So
this is the pack he opened. You're just going to slam this Hydra, right?
Yeah, I'll say the first thing I see is this Hydra, and obviously it's a team draft, so I'll look at the other pack, but I don't really care what's in the pack. I'm taking this Hydra.
Yeah, Ramanop Hydra has been really impressive and certainly isn't a card that you would feel comfortable passing, even though I have to say this is a pretty strong pack here. There's a Puncturing Blow, there's a Sunscourge Champion, and then the blue cards are solid too. All 3 of them quite good. Aerial Guide, Spellweaver Eternal, and Unsummon, playable cards, but yeah, none of them are close to the Ramanop Hydra.
So now we have, he wants to stay on task. There's really nothing but just not a Harrier Naga, so there's not, you're going to look to other colors here. And he goes with Cosign to Oblivion over something like Torment of Venom or even just a Desert, which... Yeah,
and I mean, I know how Ben thinks about these. I mean, one of the ways he's used to describe these Aftermath cards, like Consigned to Oblivion, is he says, it's just 2 cards. Like, I'm just taking 2 cards here instead of 1. And, card like Consigned to Oblivion really illustrates that point well, because that is, I mean, we have absolutely in this format played Winds of Rebuke, which is effectively just Consign, and Oblivion just tacks on, an Unburden. And it's just like, oh, I just get 2 cards. Now, the hard part is casting both of them, so.
Yeah, especially if you really want to get that Hydra in your deck, which makes me think about a Desert possibly in that first pack, just to strengthen my Hydra.
Mm-hmm. What about this next pack? It looks like he took a Unquenchable Thirst.
So it looks like he wants to kind of stick to his Cosign to Oblivion. In a way, he's either thinking of maybe a 5-color blue-greenish deck or just abandoning the Hydra and just moving to blue. Because I think Unquenchable Thirst is great here, but I'm not, I guess I don't know what else I would take over it.
Well, what about Ronus' Stalwart? I mean, that's a really good 2-drop. Yeah.
I think in an 8-man you might want to Stalwart, but I think the removal is just such a key thing to control in these team drafts that, like I said, you can't control the colors anymore. There's just the packs are too deep, but you can control the removal because there's just not that much. So if one team has all the removal, that team is a huge advantage.
Yeah, like if I mean, do you feel that way? That like if we, let's just say we broke up the teams and we just said, okay, Team A, pile up all the playable removal spells that you got, and then we go Team B, do the same thing. How much? I mean, is it a pretty big edge if one of them's like, we got 9 removal spells, and the other one's like, our team has 3. The other team just took it no matter what. They didn't care about the color. They just pooled all the removal on their side, some of which is going to get played and some of which is not. How big of an advantage is that for them?
Well, I think it depends on the quality of the other cards opened. If there's some Locust God type cards and things that need to be dealt with, then yeah. But if no one opens any and everyone's creatures are just all the same gray ogres, then yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Because you can just use your other creatures to mitigate them.
Exactly.
Okay. Another Consigned to Oblivion here. Wow, pick 4. Ben must have jumped out of his chair when he saw that one.
Yeah, I said Cosign. It's Consign. I'm sorry. I actually haven't physically played with the cards much, and I don't really read the card names much. Blurry screen. Sorry about that. But yeah,
no worries.
Another Consigned to Oblivion.
Yeah, I've been super impressed by Consigned to Oblivion, and getting 1/4 here. I think Ben is going to be very, very stoked to see that. Though he's gone green and then blue, 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 and then he's incentivized to be in black as well.
Yeah, and the black can be just a splash. You could be a blue-green deck with a touch of black, so that's fine for Oblivion. And here is the Oasis. The green desert is huge. It's on color. It triggers his, counts for his Hydra.
Yeah, so Haship Oasis is a pretty easy pick here, I would assume, for Ben. I mean, you mentioned the Harrier Naga from before. Fine playable, it goes in your deck, but it's just not something that you need to prioritize, where a desert, that is something you need to prioritize. So the Oasis certainly going to help out.
Yeah, deserts are key. And I love a Feral Prowler. It does a lot. 2-drop, solid body, and when it dies, you get a card back out of it. So I have no problem ever taking a Feral Prowler.
Aerial Guide. This is an Aerial Guide that came back for Ben, by the way, and it's really the only card. In fact, it's the actual only card in his colors. He's looking to be green-blue here. So, yeah, Aerial Guide looks like a nice pickup for him there.
And I think Aerial Guide, it's best in a green deck because you can attack, send your big guys to the air.
Yeah, for sure. Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs. That card started out kind of low, but it moved up. It's actually a pretty playable card.
Yeah, I like it. Very solid, good body, and they can win those closeout games for you, which is huge.
He's going to pick up a Manolith out of the next pack, which is going to potentially open up the door for black for Oblivion. And then also, these green-blue decks, they tend to have pretty big mana sinks. Like you might get a River Hoopoe or maybe just some big 7-drop or something like that, like a Sifter Worm. And oftentimes you can find a place to put the mana from a Manolith. So I wouldn't even be surprised if that thing didn't make it into the deck.
I like Manolith a lot.
Yeah. Bone Slasher, Frayne, Sanity. Okay, these are all fine. And then he just kind of rounds out the pack with whatever's left. Leave to chance indeed. What does he get here, though?
Farm to Market.
Man, I'm telling you, man, he loves these Aftermath cards. He just takes them. He's just like, no, there's a Desert of the Indomitable in this.
I think I'm taking the Desert here. I'm sorry. I know Ben's a great drafter, and that's not to say I'm right or he's right or when someone's wrong. We just disagree sometimes. And I think Deserts are just so important, especially on color, and you have the Hydra. And I'm not really big on Farm to Market. I mean, it's a solid card, but to me, it's not fantastic.
Yeah, the farm part being, of course, the much more important part. Destroy target attacking or blocking creature. Conditional, pretty good removal. But, man, that Desert, that's a guaranteed one. Interesting pick there from Ben. Oh, a Vizier of the Anointed is his next pick. That card's been pretty good.
Yeah, Vizier is very solid. I mean, you do have to get something with Eternalizer and Balm, which is not too hard to do, but you have to keep aware of it.
He doesn't have anything now, does he?
No, not at all. That's what I'm saying. There's not a lot in green, so you're really hoping for some of the blue cards in the Amonkhet pack. The 3/2 flyer or whatnot. There's not
even Initiate would be just fine. Yeah,
not a lot. I mean, I might have taken the Aerial Guide there.
Interesting here, Dave. He took a Harrier Naga over an Aerial Guide. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think he just wants some more beef, some more body on the ground, and not just a bunch of 2/2 flyers. I mean, I'm big on Aerial Guide, but I also think Harrier Naga is a solid card in your blue-green decks. So, I think it's just preference here.
Okay. Oh, there we go. How about a Rampaging Hippo? That card's overperformed for me.
Yeah, I love Rampaging Hippo. I mean, anytime you can have a card with so much flexibility, right? Like if you're early, you're needing land drops, you just cycle it. And if it's late game, hey, here's 5/6 trample. Good luck.
Yeah, Open Fire in the pack is certainly of note. I'm sure Ben will have seen that, but he figured he needed some top end, and like you said, Rampaging Hippo's just an excellent card. I mean, it really is. So he took it there. He wheeled the Appeal. So Appeal to Authority came back, it looks like. No, sorry, this isn't the same one. Wow. So there's actually 2 Appeal to Authorities in this pod, and he took that one. And again, this has been really prioritizing the Aftermath cards. I mean, at this point, it's unlikely that he'll play Appeal unless he somehow can get the mana for Authority. And, he's got just a Manolith for that right now.
Sinuous Striker Solder, he seems to be pretty low on Aerial Guide. He's passed up, I think, 3 or 4 of them. He's just choosing not to take them, which is surprising because I think blue-green is where it's best, next to blue-red.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess your creatures are sometimes so big and green that it doesn't matter if they fly or not. They're just big.
There's that Appeal to Authority that I thought we just saw, but this is the one that I remembered from before. So now he's picked up 2 of those.
I think Appeal to Authority is best in a sort of go wide decks, which it doesn't seem like he has. So I think it's here just to give some giant monster trample, and get some more damage in. But it's not that exciting to me as a sorcery.
Hey, there's your boy, another cat, Feral Prowler, and even an Aven of Enduring Hope out of the next pack with really nothing in Ben's colors to speak of. which actually stays true for what looks like the rest of the draft. He takes Gilded Ceradon, sure, a Gift of Strength is a card, I guess. Solitary Camel, yeah, none of these are in blue-green, so he's just sort of, finishing off the pack.
Ugh, Insult to Injury.
No, Essence Scatters? Wow, he passed Insult to Injury.
Wow, Insult to Injury is, it's a card that, obviously, we played Amonkhet long enough, everyone knows how good it is. But when the set first came out, I'm like, oh, the card seems solid. And then every time I see it, it literally is like 6 mana win the game. I've never seen it be bad.
Dude, that exact same thing happened to me, except for I drafted it, and I'm like, oh, I haven't had a chance to play this. It looks pretty good. I'll try it. And then I'm like, oh, I can cast it here and we win. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I do it again, and I'm like, wow, we cast it and we won again, and by the end of the draft, I'm like, all right, this is just an A. Like, I just never lose when I play that spell.
Quickly shot up the rankings to be one of the best cards in the set to me. And I'm shocked to see him pass it in a team draft for an Essence Scatter. I get that he needs cards, but Insult to Injury is the kind of card that could beat your whole team.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that too from Ben. I really am. That card is scary. Now, he may have a read on the table that whoever he's passing it to can't take it, which could be interesting, but that's a risky move for sure. Naga Vitalist here for Ben. Again, him prioritizing his own playables, this time passing an Electrify, a Gideon of the Trials, and a Decimator Beetle.
Yeah, I might like to see the Decimator Beetle and just get that splash. You're already trying to run some blacks, multicolor things going on. You have a Manalith. You could very well get a Vitalist back because there's lots of green in this pack, and it doesn't seem like green's been heavily drafted, whereas Decimator Beetle is just such an all-star.
Hoodie B, Hooded Brawler here for Ben. We've seen where he finally will draw the line on Aftermath cards. Failure to comply. No, sir. He doesn't want that one. But Hooded Brawler, just a super solid 3-drop here from Amonkhet. Irrigated Farmland. So this could open up a white splash for Ben, though he is passing a Naga Vitalist here.
Yeah, this is the thing. It opens up the authorities, right, on the appeals. But I think, I guess he doesn't have much to do with the mana. He didn't take the Sandworm in the pack before. So, and that cycling lands are huge, but it's not a desert. So I'm not sure how much I like this pick over just, say, Naga Vitalist. But
he could also play Market now. He did it.
You're right. I forgot about that. That is the Market.
All that value. Stinging Shot, a perfectly fine either sideboard or main deck, depending on kind of what the playables count looks like and what the teams decide the other teams are on, right? This is a type of card that you could easily main deck in a team draft if you thought your opponents were playing decks with a lot of flyers, right?
I think that's the second Seraph of the Sun I've seen in these packs, which is a card that Stinging Shot is great against. He's going to go with Watchful Naga over Bounty of the Luxo, which is, I get he does need 2 drops in his color, but Bounty is a very powerful card if you can cast it. I can't have to see his whole deck. I can't think of what his whole deck looks like, but I'm not happy with this stage, so I want the power from something like a Bounty of the Luxo, I think.
I'm surprised he's passing it. Now, there are, how many cards in this pack? 3, 6, 10? 9 actual, but 10, so there will be 4 left. Do you think he's actually trying to wheel the Bounty?
Let's see, Petra's Mark, Trespass.
It'll be Swamp, Mark, Curse, and one of these cards.
Probably, I would say more likely Naga Oracle.
Yeah, that is probably more likely. But
or maybe even Doom Dissenter.
I like taking the Bounty there as well. I just found that card powerful.
Yeah, so they're 2 Seraph of the Suns and a Wing Shepherd. So the Stinging Shot's likely going to be a main deck card if they don't have the Seraphs.
Yeah, and he's going to play a Giant Spider here as well to try to stem the bleeding there. Synchronized Strike, nice. And he even got a Greater Sandworm.
Tabled, that's good. So yeah, no one's in the green, which means I think that pick where he took the Naga Vitalist, you could have taken the Decimator Beetle, and you probably get that Vitalist back.
Mm-hmm. He's just going to cut an even Wind Guide here.
Maybe not cutting it. He does have the Vizier. He does have the blue-white dual land.
You're right.
He could easily play the Wind Guide.
Great point. He actually could play it. That's very true. Interesting. I want to see if he does.
He does need some kind of way to win and some more solid cards. I think he's low on playables. I think he probably will have to play it.
By the way, there's that Pack 3, Pick 12. That's the one we were talking about. So we were right about Swamp, Curse, and Mark. The 4th card actually ended up being Miasmic Mummy.
So someone took this Doom Dissenter over the Mummy. So that was my kind of what made me, I would have taken Mummy. Well, it depends on whoever's deck. It could be someone with a green-black deck with things like the Decimator Beetle where you want that Doom Dissenter. So.
Yeah. That's an interesting draft. I love watching Ben's his team drafts because he does take very strong stances, right? I mean, there's some, you and I were looking at some of those picks like, what? Like, how could you pass this one? Or why would you take that over this great card over here? But, Ben is not spacing out eating Doritos here and drafting, right? He is doing this for a reason. And we'll get to find out about it on social media or whatever, after the fact. But I do find it really fascinating because basically every time I've watched him draft, it's been controversial. You look and you're like, wow, like how do you pass, some of the cards you did and how do you take some of the other ones? But, he feels strongly about his opinions and, I feel like I can learn something from it, even if I disagree with some of the picks.
Sure. No, I disagree sometimes, but I still like to hear his reasoning because, hey, there's always something to learn. I'm looking forward to the Dustin Stern report where he kind of does a recap of people's drafts and they go back and forth on Twitter. I mean, likely to be tomorrow when we get that going and we get to see Ben defending his picks if he does it. So I'm excited to see that, but I'm excited to see these matches and see the rest of these decks.
Yes, and the players are just winding down their deck build, which means, of course, we are mere moments away from our first round. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more live action here from the Team Draft Super League.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers monthly limited and constructed events which lead to the yearly Magic Online Championship. Download Magic Online at mtgo.com and start earning the points you need to enter. Check out Hour of Devastation booster draft leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com. HasCon is happening September 8th through 10th in Providence, Rhode Island. HasCon will be hosting a Magic the Gathering Iconic Masters release event, 25th anniversary drafts, Magic spell slinging, and all your favorites from the world of Hasbro. Join the family.